Cultural Studies Keywords, presented by Group 1, Warke, Baroque, Pador, Pino, and Leoret. We were given 12 keywords and articles by Miss April for us to associate with the Filipino practices thus existing in the country. So let's find out about these 12 keywords. So these are the 12 keywords: culture, neoliberalism, myth, aura, biopolitics, necropolitics, Vita Activa, ISA and RSA, simulacra, pastiche, kitsch, and everyday. So we would be discussing or giving our own interpretation whilst somehow associating these keywords to the Filipino practices. So let's start with Marthy Baroque with culture.
Raymond William, or also known as the father of cultural studies, view culture as the whole way of life that shapes our lives, even at birth until death. Our personal and social experiences are the aftermath of our culture. So why does he say so? Raymond William made a work on 1958 about culture and society, yes. And his primary motivation for writing this was to refute and to be proven wrong the increasing contemporary use of culture against democracy and socialism. William was trying to change the current interpretation of culture because culture was being used as a means to perpetuate or continue indefinitely social inequality. Even if I were in the shoe of Raymond Williams, I will do the same thing. I would like to cease or to stop the inappropriate use of culture for social inequality. In order for us to know more or to understand deeply what is culture in accordance to the definition of Raymond William, I will give you here some Filipino-inspired examples to the next slide. Okay. As what can you see in the slide or in the photos? It shows, in the first photo it shows the hospitality trait of being a Filipino. So for example, when there is an occasion, the one who are catered first, right, are the popular, the rich people rather than those normal ones. So while waiting for the guest to finish his or her meal, the childrens there are waiting, yes. And when the guest is already done, then the normal people or those unknown people can eat next. So in that case or in that example, we can really see the inequality between the known individuals rather than the unknown one. And that is the thing that Raymond William wants to cease or to stop, the inappropriate use of culture for social inequality. Since we're done with the culture, let's move on to neoliberalism. So according to Bello 2009, neoliberalism is when the market itself and the producers of the goods are the one who will manage the price they want to intend without the control of the state or of the government. Neoliberalism can be positive or negative. Positive in the way that our dear farmers of the Philippines, yes, will have the freedom to sell their harvest in appropriate price. Our farmers are experiencing a lot of inequality today, right? Where the buyers of their harvest buy their product in a very small amount. As what can you see there in the picture, the farmer is holding a 10 peso. That's only the price that he gained in his harvest or in his effort. So once these products are sold to the market, they will sell this in a very high price, and that's very inappropriate, and we can see the inequality in the market, right? But the negative side of this is where our state will no longer have taxes. That is also advantages for us and to our country because this will serve as their fund in building and maintaining infrastructures like roads and Yes, everything that can enhance our places. According to Roland Barthes or Barthes, I'm sorry, I don't know what is the correct reading or pronunciation of his last name. But then, anyways, so myth is understood under the field of semiotics. This is where you use signs in order to interact in the environment. For Barthes, the use of signs has a cultural power that can influence a lot of people. That's why he undertake this as a myth. So for more examples, let me show you in the next slide. Here in the Philippines, if we see an old man or an old woman whom we know or we don't know, the first thing that comes out to our mind is respect because old men and women signals us to show respect. And by showing respect, in order to show respect, we do the mano po. Are you familiar with that? Oh, of course, because that's our trait of being a Filipino, and that's part of our practices and culture. And also for the second photo, as what can you see? The aura brigella, am I right? And then also there is Jaya doing the heart sign, Korean heart sign, sorry. This is very prominent to our country today. Even if this sign came from Korea, a lot of Filipinos are doing this heart sign because if you do such thing, meaning you are showing love or giving love to a person, it may be a filial love or agape love or etc. Next keyword that will be discussed is aura by Walter Benjamin.
Biopolitics is a study between life and politics. The Responsible Parenthood and Reproductive Health Act of 2012, known as the RH Law, is a groundbreaking law that guarantees universal and free access to nearly all modern contraceptives for all citizens, including impoverished communities at government health centers.
According to Walter Benjamin or Benjamin, aura is the overall impact of something. This can be understood through arts and craft. So let's say for example, are you familiar with the lava gown that our Pride Miss Universe 2018 Catriona Gray wore during their evening gown competition? What makes the lava gown unique and extremely fabulous was the meaning and the history that it conveys. Because for your information, it was inspired by the Mayan volcano here in the Philippines. The gown has an aura because of the overall impact of this, yes. From how Catriona Gray delivered the gown, and also, of course, it has a meaning, it has a hidden meaning inside.
Necropolitics by Achille Mbembe. It is about controlling and dictating people's lives with the use of social and political power. Example of necropolitics is vote buying, which it is a corruption in the political system and also to the people to choose the right candidate. Vote buying is a form of electoral fraud which dictate us voters who we will choose. Candidates give us money to choose their name, and who will be the highest bidder will get the choose vote from the voters. Another example that can be related to the necropolitics is found in the seventh trait, particularly in number 2. The shared use of violence is the EDSA People Power Revolution, which started because of Marcos' violence and electoral fraud during the presidential election. Veta Activa by Hannah Arendt. Veta Activa action is more important than thinking. It talks about human action and how people act upon the world. It is about man working with another man's company, which has three aspects. The labor means political necessary repetitive process of perpetuating as a biological species. And the second one is work. Human possesses a goal and then set of realizing the purpose of action. And the action, freely initiated activity done in the public. Example of Veta Activa is some Filipinos goes abroad to provide the needs of their family. In the Philippines, we have that culture being a family-centric society, which we should not forget our family, thus we need to give them a better life as a repay of what they did to us, which give pressure to us. That's why some Filipinos goes abroad to have a higher salary so that they can provide to their family needs.
RSA and ISA. So for me, this is how they control people to obey the rules they want to implement. Mura ni siyang duha ka rules kung unsaon pagpasunod ang mga tawo. So, in my own understanding, the RSA or the repressive state apparatus is used by the people in power to control the people in the society. The keyword being repressive, meaning to repress the people to follow the rules that are imposed, that can enforce behavior directly, such as the police and the criminal justice system. Through this apparatus, the state has the power to force you physically to behave. Sumuyos sila og violence para musunod. So ingani di ay ang RSA mo dagan. While the ISA or the ideological state apparatus, which is the people are controlled by different ideologies. So what do we mean by ideologies? So it's a different belief. So these ideologies are based upon religion, education, communication, culture, and legal. This meaning the church and the schools. Here we have some very distinct differences on how the state apparatus works. So let's say the RSA is in a public domain, whereas the ideological state apparatus in a private domain. So this public domain means how it sounds. The use at this time was only in public, where the state could impose violence upon its citizens. The private domain controls people with what they are being taught by religion or by school or ruled by their own culture. For example, if we refuse to go to church, we become outcasts in our community that will not accept us in society. Therefore, to be part of this community, we must follow the dominant power's ideology of going to church and being brainwashed to think that they act the way they want you. The fear of being outcast is what makes ISA work. So on the other hand, the fear of violence is how RSA works. So they both work in similar ways of keeping our orders and the status quo. Simulacra, something that replaces fact with its reflection, is the creation of a true lacking source or reality through the use of image. So, so the simulacrum is never that which conceals the truth. It is the truth which conceals that there is none. Simulacra and simulation is most known for its discussion of a symbol and signs, and how they relate to reality. Baudrillard claims that our current society has replaced all reality and meaning with symbols and signs, and that human experience is simulation of reality. Moreover, these simulacra are not merely mediation of reality, nor even deceptive mediation of reality. They are not based in reality, nor do they hide a reality. They simply hide that nothing like reality is relevant to our current understanding of our lives. So, some people, it seems, are not in touch with reality. We are being blind by the reality. They live in their own world, or let's call it fantasy, where everything is just so. Or perhaps not so. A fantasy can be a nightmare as well as heroic delusions. Whatever they weigh, they seem totally blind to the reality around them. Then the simulacra that Baudrillard refers to are the signification and symbolism of culture and media that construct perceived reality, the acquired understanding by which our lives and shared existence are rendered legible. Baudrillard believed also that society had become as saturated with these simulacra, and our lives so saturated with the construct of society, that all meaning was becoming meaningless by being infinitely mutable. Mura ni siya ang lahat ang iyong nakikita ay lahat tamang katang-isip lamang. Maginana or magapon siya for being blind by the reality. So, we say someone loses touch with reality. And perhaps they do, but maybe also some never connect in the first place. So, lahi-lahi man jud ta reality, lahi-lahi ta og mga nakita. Then, imbis mo ni ang tinuod, lahi mo na atong nakita. Kay mao man ato ang gihuna-huna.
So, pastiche. Based from the modules on Jameson, on pastiche, it is an imitation for appreciation. This can be driven from theater, visual arts, and arts in general. But for us to fully understand its definition, so pastiche is basically an imitation of something, usually visual arts and arts in general. It is an obvious take of sampling something and crafting something to rather acknowledge and appreciate the imitated work. The first example of pastiche is the critically acclaimed musical, The Huling El Bimbo. The original The Huling El Bimbo was actually a song from Eraserheads, released on October 26, 2009. It was converted a musical in August 2019, and it portrayed the oppression the ordinary college students have gone through. It is a story of friendship that was tested through time and eventually failing promises. It is a perfect example of pastiche since the song was converted to a musical for appreciation, not to put the original at the center of mockery. Our second example is a nationwide trending hip-hop song of Ismail, Panalo. If you are wondering why this is considered as pastiche, the track actually sampled Cariñosa, an iconic folk song intended for couples. Esmil took the folk song as his sample to staple and to put emphasis about his sole purpose, to promote our country. What better way to do it than associate a folk song that is known, if not all, but most of the Filipinos. This is also a good example of pastiche since it strived to emphasize our culture with extended appreciation. Avant-garde and kitsch are both contrasting art forms, since avant-garde is targeted to the upper class, while kitsch is targeted to the general audience, or the lower class. Avant-garde is usually a complex artwork that needs analysis. Given its audience, most people who venture to avant-garde has knowledge about art analysis, while kitsch, artworks that are intended to the general mass and cheap materials are used. These are artworks that does not need any passion from the artist. Avant-garde and kitsch are both different in terms of the audience and the process on how to do them respectively. Avant-garde is usually complex art in which only the upper class normally has the capacity to analyze these art forms. On the other hand, kitsch are art forms intended to the general masses. Usually these are art forms that are made without passion and sometimes mass-produced. An example of avant-garde is a painting named The Grenadian Arabesque. It is a masterpiece by our national artist Jose Hoya. This is considered as avant-garde since it became a critically acclaimed abstract painting. It represented the Philippines at Venice Biennale in 1964. It was the first time and the longest-running showplace for contemporary art and the international avant-garde. An example of kitsch, on the other hand, on the right corner, is the painting created by an infamous actor, Mr. Richard Gomez. He stated that he has been always fascinated with paintings, and he had collected a lot, but he was never a painter. But when he showed his piece to the public eye, it was criticized by a lot of people. It became trending nationwide, and some aspiring painters felt distrust knowing they are working hard with their skills, but they never got the recognition Gomez received, in which they think they deserved. It is considered kitsch because despite the controversy, people still bought it, and it was exposed to the mass, in which it sparked a lot of conversations. And to add up, it was plainly black and yellow acrylic on wood that makes it kitsch, since kitsch are usually cheap materials. The Practice of Everyday Life. A Practice of Everyday Life by Michael de Certeau is a book that states both the ruling class and the normal or ordinary people. The ruling class produces something in which the ordinary ones would have to apply these, since the ruling class are there to impose these things. However, it also stated that the ordinary ones would have to conform to this in order for them to also resist the structure the ruling class had expected the ordinary ones to utilize them. The Practice of Everyday Life is indeed a book between two standing factors in the society: the ruling class, or the ones who produce, and the ordinary people, the ones who utilizes what the ruling class has produced. The book also emphasizes how the ordinary ones resist what the ruling class has produced. I know it would be hard to give an example regarding this. But if we are to take the perspective of someone living in the present, where new normal exists, the issue of COVID-19 vaccine would be the concrete example. There has been an issue circulating about the vaccine, stating the efficacy of the vaccine is not guaranteed. And the public officials are continuously encouraging and imposing to a lot of people to take the vaccine. It is a good example since it weighs both the factors, the controlling ones and the ones that are being controlled. These are the references that help us with our own interpretation regarding the keywords that were provided. Without these references, we wouldn't be able to determine a specific Filipino practice that has been practiced by a lot of Filipinos. And without these references, we wouldn't be able to give our own take regarding the topic.